In this video, I'm going to talk about an old Games Workshop game that you unfortunately can't get anymore called Space Hulk, and why I like it. Space Hulk from Games Workshop holds a special place in my wargaming history, such as it is. While it wasn't the first wargame I ever played, that was Battletech back in middle school. It was the first Warhammer game that I ever played. My good friend Peter taught me to play on his copy of first edition Space Hulk back in the early 1990s when we were both in college. And I was intrigued not only by the game itself and by the miniatures and the modular board and all that kind of stuff, but also by the glimpses of the world of Warhammer 40,000 that were sprinkled around in the rulebook. Space Hulk is what I'd call a gateway game. It sits pretty firmly between the world of board gaming and the world of miniature wargaming. It is Terminator Space Marines entering a Space Hulk, which is a kind of a clump of derelict, abandoned spaceships floating around through the cosmos for some reason. And they go in there, looking for relics and whatnot, and generally just instead finding thousands and thousands and thousands of horrible, clawed gene stealer aliens who want to eat them and also steal their genes. It's a tale as old as time. It's really more of a dungeon crawl of a game than a normal war game that we might be used to. It's played in these really sort of tight, claustrophobic hallways that connect different rooms, and they're so narrow that the Space Marines, they're too bulky and they can't pass each other over, through the hallway to switch positions. Therefore, position and order of your group are very important to how the Imperium player, plays. The Gene Stealer player, however, generally has a near infinite supply of identical bodies to throw at the Terminators, making for a really interesting asymmetrical play experience. This is my copy of the third edition of Space Hulk, released in about 2009 or so. There was another near identical version released after this version that people kind of generally refer to as fourth edition, though I personally think of it as version 3.5. It is almost identical to this version. The box looks the same, it's just the logo is slightly different, not even a lot, but slightly different. And there's some rules tweaks, but otherwise the miniatures are all the same, the board pieces are all the same, all the rest of the stuff on the inside between 3 and 4 are the same. And that fourth edition came out in 2014, right? So both of these releases were limited editions that sold out very quickly. Sound familiar? Yeah. And there hasn't been a new release of Space Hulk for, at this point, nearly a decade, which is really kind of a bummer, as it's a great game in general and also an amazing way to get people into the hobby. Nearly a decade ago, I made a video on this channel titled "Some Game Companies Don't Like Money." Pachow, you can watch it. The audio is really not very good. But in that video, I touched on the fact that Space Hulk had gone out of production at that point again, and how if it was in production continuously, then it would probably sell well, as it was such a great gateway game, and also, like I said, a great intro to the hobby, and just a really, really fun game. And I still believe this to be true. Even beyond being a gateway game, it's just an out-and-out great game with great rules, a great concept, great miniatures, and great fun. Here in the box, you get 12 monopose Terminator Space Marines of the Blood Angels chapter. And they're covered with all the appropriate iconography and bedazzlement that, whatnot for the chapter. This guy's actually got a whole spinal column and the skull of a Tyranid in his hand, which is pretty cool. They were, and frankly still are, some of the best Terminator sculpts that GW has ever made, even in comparison to the new Terminator sculpts from, the new 10th edition Leviathan set. Now, that said, they are considerably smaller than the new Terminators, who finally seem to have grown into their descriptions in the lore. You also get some 20-odd Gene Stealers in all kinds of amazing poses and dynamic positions. It was interesting. In the third and fourth editions, they used the same models, these models here, but they were just miles and miles ahead of the sculpts from the previous editions. In the previous editions, first and second, the Terminators and the Gene Stealers were in very, very static poses, and they were mainly all just duplicates of each other. kind of over and over. All the Terminators were mostly posed the same, and in second edition, you could kind of move the arms up and down a little bit on the posts where you glued them, but you really couldn't with the first edition. And the Gene Stealers were pretty much just all posed in the same kind of thing, and you could maybe, again, adjust an arm a little bit. But in the newer editions of the game, the models are all wildly different from each other. The game isn't played on a standard rectangular board either. It's all these kind of modular, interlocking kind of hallways and rooms that I mentioned earlier. They're full color, real thick card, with glossy, and they're embossed and all that kind of stuff. And they make for a great play space without really needing terrain. There's also these doors, right, that you can use as well, that both players can interact with actually during the game to block line of sight or to ambush foes and all that kind of stuff. There's a surprising amount of strategy actually for both sides in the proper administration of the doors in Space Hulk. Beyond the miniatures and the playing surface, you also get a smattering of tokens and markers and all kinds of different little things like that for the game. And then, of course, there's dice in the package as well. Now, there's no ruler needed, as the tiles have these kind of grids built into them, so it's really easy to measure, for movement and range by just using the grids on the tiles. And then, of course, there's the two booklets. There's the rule book, and then also the mission book. And they are both quite thin, but full color and all that kind of stuff. And the rule book is pretty straightforward. It has all the rules, and it's got lots of all kinds of illustrations and examples and things like that, to diagrams and everything to show you how things go. Everything you need to play really is in this book, except for the missions. The missions booklet right here, this is where you'll find the 12 different missions that you can play in Space Hulk. And they can be played any way that you like as far as order is concerned, but they can also be played in order from, number 1 all the way up to number 12, which is here. And as you go, they kind of get bigger, the more dense, more stuff going on the board. The first one starts out quite small, really. It's a pretty small setup, and they get bigger as you go, basically kind of becoming like a simple campaign to some degree. The missions are well-paced and varied, and really, honestly, a bunch of fun to play from either side, the Terminators or the Gene Stealers. The missions book is also where all of the lore is held, so you can find out all about that stuff. It's got all the pertinent background of the world of Warhammer 40,000. You'll notice that my copy isn't painted here, but it will be. Now that I've recently dug it out of the deep recesses of the basement, I plan on working on it. I think potentially live streaming it on Twitch after I get my current Imperial Guard project finished that I'm doing on Twitch. I enjoyed Space Hulk so much in the past that I'd honestly really like to get it onto the table again, and I'd like to get it painted, even if maybe, I speed paint it or I do some cool like oil wash techniques on it to make everything properly grimdark. I think it'll be a ton of fun. Usually I do these Why I Like It episodes to highlight something that I like, that you could go out, and get yourself right now if it sounded like a cool idea to you. Unfortunately, that's not the case with this episode, as, like I said, Space Hulk has been out of production for nearly an entire decade, and who knows if they'll ever bring it back. Some of the Kill Team Quarterly boxes recently have had a bit of a Space Hulk vibe to them, with like the walls and the Galadark and all that kind of stuff, but it's really not the same thing. Maybe this video will help in some tiny measure to bring Space Hulk back to where we can all play it again. Like raise awareness, if you will, right? If anything, me going through and painting up all of the Space Hulk miniatures that I have will probably do the most to launch a new 5th edition. As soon as all of my Space Hulk models are painted, then of course a new edition will release with even cooler models, which I will need to paint. It's happened before. So if you have a friend with a copy, see if they want to get it out and play through some games. You won't be disappointed. It's a great time, truly. Currently, GW doesn't make anything in this kind of format that touches it these days. Honestly. If you own a copy, let us know in the comments below what you think of it. Is it the best game ever? And if you wish that GW would bring it back, maybe, share this video to spread the word. Maybe share it with GW themselves. I don't know. Maybe it'll help. Like the video and spread the word of Space Hulk to the masses. It really does help. And subscribe if you'd like to. Thanks for watching.